Bienvenue à
Good evening,
cette
everyone.
réunion du 8
Welcome
janvier. Une nouvelle
to the
année qui
meeting of
commence. Tout le
January
monde
8th,
est
a new
frais et
year
dispo.
beginning. Everyone
Tout le monde en pleine forme,
is
surtout
in
après
great
les petites
shape,
nouvelles qu'on
and
a eues l'année
especially
passée.
after
Il y en
the
a
great
qui voient
news we had
ça
last year.
comme
Some of
fardeau,
you
il y en a d'autres qui
have
voient
seen this
ça
as a burden.
maudit qu'on est
Others
chanceux.
have said,
Il y en a d'autres
holy,
qui disent
we're
on le
lucky.
mérite.
Others say, well, we
C'est
deserve it.
ça. Alors, sans plus
And
tarder,
so,
la ville de
without
Dieppe
further ado,
reconnaît que la terre sur
the
laquelle
city of Dieppe
tient ses
recognized that the
activités fait
land on which
partie
it
du
operates
territoire
is part of the
ancestral et
unceded
traditionnel
traditional territory
non cédé des Mi'kmaq.
of the Mi'kmaq.
Également, chers collègues,
And also,
ayons la
dear
sérénité
colleagues, let's
d'accepter
have the
les choses que
serenity
nous ne
to
pouvons
accept the things
changer,
we cannot
le
change,
courage de changer
the
les choses
courage
que l'on
to
veut et la
change the
sagesse
things we
de
can,
la
and the
connaître la
wisdom to
différence.
know the difference.
Alors, la réunion, on appelle la réunion à l'ordre
So
et
we open the meeting
ça nous amène à la
with a call to
confirmation du
order.
quorum.
Let's confirm
Je
quorum.
sais qu'on a un joueur additionnel
We have an additional
extérieur,
player
conseiller
from
Godette. Bonsoir, Monsieur
outside,
Godette.
Councillor Godet. Good evening.
Et pour continuer,
And let's move on.
déclaration de conflit d'intérêts, rien
Conflicts
qui
of
a été
interest.
rapporté.
Nothing has
Alors, on
been
continue avec
reported.
l'adoption
Let's continue on
de
with the
l'ordre du
adoption of
jour.
the agenda.
Proposition par le conseiller
Moved
Brideau,
by Councillor
amendée par
Brideau,
le conseiller
seconded
Thibodeau,
by Councillor Thibodeau,
qu'on accepte
that
l'ordre du
we
jour tel que
accept
présenté.
the
Sur la
agenda as
question,
presented. On the question,
aucune question. Ceux qui sont
no
en faveur
questions.
de
All those in
l'adoption, s'il vous plaît,
favor
par un
will
oui,
say aye.
ou de l'avis contraire par un non.
Against, nay.
Alors, l'ordre du jour est
So the
accepté
agenda
tel que
is carried as
présenté.
presented.
Et ça nous amène
And this brings us now
aux présentations, requêtes et
to presentations,
pétitions au
inquiries, and
7.1,
petitions.
demande de
7.1,
renseignement
inquiries by
des membres du conseil
council
à la
members,
gendarmerie royale et
Kodiak
Madame
Regional RCMP, Chantal
Turgeon. Non, ça, Turgeon Roy, c'est
Turgeon.
l'autre.
No, I'm sorry. Turgeon was someone else.
Farah, Madame l'inspectrice
Constable
Chantal
Farah.
Farah, qui est avec
Inspector
nous ce
Farah
soir.
is with us this evening,
Bienvenue.
and
Juste
welcome to
trouve le
you.
bouton.
Just give me a second to find the way to turn a mic on.
Et voilà.
There we go. I had forgotten to turn the screen on.
Et voilà.
All set. Good evening, Your Worship, all councillors, and Happy New Year. At the last meeting of council in December, I had shared with you that we were at the Sobeys on Regent Street in Dieppe to help the food bank, the Second Mile Food Bank, and to help families in the region. So, by way of a report, I want to say that this event allowed us to gather more than 920 pounds of food in one evening alone, and 800 and some $90 in funds. So thank you to all the citizens of the regions for their generosity. December 15, the RCMP had a ball. The Lieutenant Governor of the Honorable Brenda Murphy, Minister of Public Security, Honorable Chris Austin, as well as the Commissioner of RCMP, Mark Diana Hill, and many other dignitaries, and many of you attended. Thank you, Your Worship, as well as the councillors and the Dieppe representatives for attending this event, which made it a great success. Because of this event, we had leftovers from purchase of tickets, which we wanted to share to the three food banks which service our region in Dieppe, Moncton, Riverview. So on January 4th, we provided checks of $845 each to Second Mile Food Bank, another one to Peter McKee Community Center, and a third to the Albert County Food Bank for a total of $2,535 for the people of our region. Operationally speaking, I only have one file to share with you. Crime reduction found a stolen car on McLaughlin Road on January 3rd. This vehicle had been reported stolen from Salisbury in November, and in fact, one of our patrol cars had found this vehicle, as well as a 27-year-old man who was arrested. When he was arrested, I also want to add that there was a firearm inside the vehicle, as well as non-secured munitions and drugs which we believe to be crystal meth and other contraband. This individual will be showing up in court at another date to deal with these related accusations. That's it for my report this evening. If you have any questions, I can answer them. Thank you. Any questions by members of council? No, I think that's going to, you were getting a great many complaints about thefts on Champlain Street around you go into the industrial park there, specifically on the south part of Champlain. I could give you more details about that. I'm told that many complaints I've received. These are break-ins into businesses there. Yes, yes. If some haven't been reported to us, I encourage you to let us know. I don't have them here in front of me, but I can tell you that lately we have trends which are following the waves up and down, and we hear about things that are happening and tell us about any cases you know of, or give us the videos in appropriate time. Sometimes we have difficulty getting that video footage. Thank you for bringing it to us. But I want to say that thefts from cars, uh, there are about 6 complaints between December 30th and January 4th in Dieppe along streets not far from Dieppe Boulevard. But I can tell you that in these cases, these cars had not been logged, and so they were easy picks. People were passing by. Once again, if people have video systems in their cars or homes, if you see anything suspicious, you can submit that to us. The specific case I'm talking about is that it was the first, that was the first question I asked them, in fact, and I can certainly give you further details. I can send you an email. Thank you. Thank you. And nothing else? So thank you once again for being here. It's always appreciated. Thank you. The next item is a presentation on the procedural bylaw of the Municipal Council. Mr. Simard will be introducing this discussion. Mr. Simard. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, this evening, the clerk's office is doing 2 presentations, and I'm very pleased to do these presentations because these presentations should have been done in 2023, but for many reasons, they were pushed ahead. And so this evening, 2 bylaws. The first one is the procedural bylaw that has been revised from top to bottom, and we'll be proposing it tonight. This procedural bylaw, I'll be introducing it to you and doing the presentation. Following that, in 7.3, there's the Code of Ethics governing council members. This presentation will be undertaken by Catherine d'Entremont. Let me set the scene for you. In January 2018, for those of you who might remember it, the Local Governance Act changed many things with regard to rules and regulations involving the management of local governments, cities, municipalities, and all the rest of it. So this came into effect January 1st, and in mid-2018, 2 regulations entered into effect, not at the same time, but I'm talking about the procedural bylaws regulation, which sets out the content that the bylaws should have, and regulation involving the Code of Ethics. These 2 regulations require the passing of these 2 components by municipal councils. That's what we're going to do this evening. So for your information, Dieppe had already had both of these kinds of bylaws. So we were a model for others. I can tell you I was consulted. I participated in workshops with the Department of Municipality at the time in Fredericton. And so we had worked on the future version of the regulation, which would have dealt with the procedural bylaws and also code of ethics. We had the advantage at the time and also today of having a code of conduct which is integrated into the procedural bylaw. So I can tell you that other municipalities and the government referred often to this document, and I was very proud. In fact, I was very pleased that we could share that with them. Following the passing of these regulations, we began to work on R4. And you also should know that there are elements, things happened in 2018 and even up until today, which meant that we had to delay various things. Among other things, there was a pandemic, and also with regard to the code of ethics, in fact, there was the implementation of the Commission on Local Governance. And that commission implemented a commission which is going to manage the behavior of various municipalities. I'll come back to that in a moment, and Madame d'Entremont will also be able to elaborate on that. And so I should also say that I have new resources in the clerk's office. So this also supported me in helping to do this presentation today. And as I said a moment ago, in 2022, a mandate was given to Madame d'Entremont, who began work on the procedural code of ethics governing council members. Madame d'Entremont is going to be doing that presentation after mine. So generally speaking, these two bylaws are basically updates of how we conform to the laws and regulations. And also, we are setting down on paper how we do things. And we realize that we're maybe not all doing what we are doing, should be doing in the bylaws. So we're going to correct that. So first of all, let me do this presentation on 7.2 on the procedural bylaw of the Municipal Council. Then Madame d'Entremont will then proceed to do her presentation at 7.3 on the Code of Ethics. I have the magic wand here, so I'll control things from this panel with the presentations. And so bylaw A4. This new A4 bylaw, I'll give you the main overview of the major changes. Of course, there are all kinds of different preliminary elements, but they are essentially modifications or amendments to, which are part of the bylaw. But you have had and you will have an opportunity to read and reread these bylaws. So let's look at the main changes first of all. The list of these changes are the definitions, also the fact that we've modeled the bylaw to be in compliance with the regulations which were issued in mid-2018. The regulations which govern the behavior of members is an obligation. You'll see this in a moment in the Code of Ethics bylaw, but some changes are proposed to how we elect the deputy mayor. There is a new paragraph which deals with the compliance to the Copyright Act in Canada. And why do we have this? Well, it's because the council meetings are published on a public network on Rogers. And when we add music or other things which are under copyright, well, we have to comply with the Copyright Act. And so we have some obligations to comply with the copyright. We did this in practice, but this is going to allow us to say to the person, look, this doesn't correspond to such a paragraph, and so we're going to have to mute it or we'll have to withdraw something. And then the quorum, this was delayed. We'll see that in a moment. Participation in debates by the chair. This was revised in a small way, but it's still part of the amendments and changes. On the council deliberations. So this is the way that debate is undertaken. So we are introducing a list of ways of making motions and voting on them. Generally speaking, what I'm doing is that we have this as a tool to manage debate and discussion, and it's now part of the procedural bylaw, and it's going to make work easier. There's also the notice of motion issue. It's a new rule, and I think that it's going to facilitate everyone's work here around the table and also management's work too. Those are the main changes that are going to be looked at. Under definitions, let me go quickly. Many words were not properly defined, in my opinion. And also in the definitions, there were many elements that were defined and that are explained in the bylaw. So they're no longer in the definitions. I'll move on. I said a moment ago that the bylaw was adapted to the structure provided under the regulation on procedural bylaws. So you have a list here, and what we're going to be putting in a procedural bylaw. You have the order of what is involved in this bylaw. So you have to put the day, the time, the place, the hours, the way the public has been notified. All of these issues have to be included in the procedural bylaw. How the deputy mayor is elected and all these things. That's why we're talking about it. So it's a requirement now to put this in the procedural bylaw. I'm not going to read this because we already know what the content is. The new bylaw requires a new element, a new tool involving the code of ethics, which must be part of the things we do as elected representatives. But a section says members of council must comply with the code of ethics governing council members. How the deputy mayor is elected. This is very special, and I'm going to provide this possibility to you. So in order to be transparent, for members of the public particularly, and those who don't know, at the current time, the deputy mayor is elected in a closed session. People are not witnessing what's happening. A vote is taken, a written vote, and the votes are collected by the clerk. The clerk counts the votes and announces who the deputy mayor is. The clerk has my entire confidence, of course, unfortunately for him, but there's no trace of that decision because it's not done in public. And so what I'm proposing is, but it's your bylaw, of course, and I'll certainly listen to what comments you have. But I propose that the deputy mayor be elected by at the first public meeting and every year after that among the candidates. And you do the same voting that you do now, which is by raised hand, in parentheses, if you will, but it's a matter of transparency. And this is what I'm proposing to you for this new bylaw. And this would be under section or paragraph 12. I understand this is a big change that I'm suggesting to you compared to the current practice. And I'm eager to hear what you have to say about it. So that's a major change. And the next one, and I explained this a moment ago, and it's the Copyright Act. So we want to make sure that any music that we play that is broadcast on the website, that it can be done without incurring problems from copyright or royalties. So this will be, you'll see below here in section or paragraph 17 and the subparagraphs 3, 4, 5, and 6. Quorum, I'm suggesting a change here. You have to wait 30 minutes in order for quorum to be taken. If we don't have quorum, then we wait 30 minutes because now with our communication methods, we know if the person is going to be there in the next 5 minutes or so. So I suggest that we move to a 15-minute time frame. If there's no quorum after 15 minutes, then we move ahead and we delay the meeting to another date. It's a small change that I'm proposing to you. And participation in discussion by the chair. We've had this discussion previously. When the chair wants to participate in discussions, what the bylaw provides is that they have to remove themselves from the seat and then ask the deputy mayor move into that chair. But normally the mayor says that they want to participate in the debate, gives the chair to the deputy mayor, stays in their seat, and then technically takes back the reins of the meeting. So what I'm suggesting is that this be put on paper and comply with the current practice. Council deliberation. This is a big change, which I mentioned earlier. In all deliberations, and the principle of debate is the whole Bourneau's Rules of Order, the book that we're required. Well, we're not required to refer specifically to this. We can choose one rules of order, but practically speaking, this is what we have been using. And these are the same methods of discussion that the House of Commons uses in Ottawa. And so what I've done is I've put together all the ways of leading a debate with a priority order because there are proposals that are taken before others that are prioritized compared to others. And so basically, this is what we follow. When things aren't going well, this is how we solve the issue. So you'll see this, without having to open the book, you'll see this in the procedural bylaw. So this is what I'm proposing. And we even simplified some of those constituents of the debate, so it will be easier to understand and interpret as well, and also to refer to and use. 9, notice of motion. This is another change that I'm putting forward to you, and which I think is an interesting one. At the current time, our practice, there's a point at the end of the agenda, which is called notices of motion. And often the practice is to have a councillor say, well, I propose a notice of motion to amend such and such a bylaw to do such and such a thing. Often the reaction is, well, look, maybe that's a little too fast. Maybe we don't have all what the things we need. We need to do some research. So what I'm saying is, henceforth, every policy, every bylaw must be the object of a notice of motion. That is to say, by way of example, I want to table a policy which is amending another policy which is already in existence. This means that at a meeting, the first step is not to pass the resolution, but instead to provide a notice of motion. How is this done? Very easy. In fact, when we get to that point on the agenda under notice of motion, there will be a notice of motion of such a policy. The mayor will say, one of the councillors will raise their hand, say, I give notice of motion. And with this notice of motion, there will be the policy document, or there will be the bylaw, the policy for the city. This will allow us a period of time between two meetings of council to read and analyze the document and to prepare questions that you might have, or also allow you to reflect rather than coming up with a resolution on a policy. Same thing for the bylaw. It's going to technically add a 2-week period of time to implement the policy. I think the benefit is 2 weeks. So it's rare that we put a policy into place. So it takes that time. It's rare, but there's always a possibility of doing something when it needs to be done quickly. So this is a proposal, and it's a fairly simple one. I think it's going to allow us to eliminate some questions that we have, some issues that we have. It clears up the notice of motion matter and it allows the work to be more clear and allow the public to be more aware of what's happening. It's just an issue of transparency, in fact. So that's the overview of the main changes to the procedural bylaw that I'm putting forward. You'll see a moment in a moment that we'll be looking at first and second reading. If the two other readings, if these two readings, if you have any comments or questions about this, you can do them because there's a period for questions at the end of the presentation today. So having said this, if you will allow your worship, we'll move on to Catherine d'Entremont's presentation.
Bonsoir, bienvenue.
Good evening and welcome.
Madame d'Entremont, bonsoir.
Good evening, Madame d'Entremont.
S'il vous plaît, activez votre micro. Si c'est
Can
pas
you
déjà
turn
fait.
your mic on, please, if it hasn't,
Oui,
if you haven't already done so?
un peu plus haut, un peu plus fort.
We need a little more volume. Can you hear me?
C'est mieux?
It's a little better.
OK, parfait.
Great.
Bon,
C'est bien.
parfait. Alors, merci.
Thank you.
Merci d'être là.
Thank
Ça fait
you
plaisir
for
d'être
being there.
avec vous
I'm
ce
very
soir.
pleased to be with you this
Donc,
evening.
comme
And so, as
Stéphane a dit,
Stéphane
c'était
mentioned
quand même,
earlier,
à peu près, c'était à l'automne
it was in the fall
2022
of
qu'on a commencé à
2022
travailler
that I began
sur
working
le code de déontologie
on the Code of
de
Ethics
la ville de Dieppe.
for the
Donc,
city of Dieppe.
est-ce que la présentation est
And so, is the
là?
Oui.
presentation there?
Merci.
Great, thank you.
Donc, c'est pas moi qui contrôle tourner les pages. Donc,
I don't have control of the pages, and probably some will know when it's time to change the slides. Stéphane's controlling things.
Merci, Stéphane.
Great, thank you,
Donc, la
Stéphane. So the first page or slide
survol des principales
is an
modifications
overview of the main changes
au code de déontologie.
to the Code of
Donc,
Ethics.
c'est vraiment les titres de chapitre dans ce
These are
document-là.
the
Euh,
chapter
je vous
titles for the
laisse
document.
lire
I'll give you a moment to read through
les
those.
différentes catégories.
You can see the various categories
En
there on the
passant,
screen. And
Stéphane
by
a
the way,
mentionné
Stéphane mentioned
les modifications,
the
les
changes,
modifications aux
the
lois
new
et puis au règlement, etc.
law amendments
Et
and
puis,
amendments to
ça va
regulations.
peut-être
And so it's
être une
probably
question
going
qui
to
va
be
survenir.
an
Je pense que je
issue
vais
that'll
en
come up
parler tout de
again.
suite. C'est
But
que
let me raise it immediately
la loi qui a créé la
that
Commission
the
sur la
act which
gouvernance locale
created the
a un
Commission on Local
processus
Governments
aussi
has also
de
the
plainte et d'enquête en
process
vertu de cette
for
loi-là.
complaints and
Et
inquiries.
Stéphane
That's
et
part
moi,
of their
lorsqu'on
work.
a vu
Stéphane
que le
and I,
projet de loi
when
était
we saw
présenté,
that this bill was being
moi, j'ai
tabled,
fait appel au service
I
du ministère
called on the
pour
department
obtenir des précisions, à
to
savoir
get some
si
clarification,
les
and
municipalités
I asked if the
peuvent
municipalities
se prévaloir ou
would
doivent
be
se
able
prévaloir
to or
des services de la
have to
Commission.
be
Donc, la réponse est
uh,
c'est pourquoi que
have
les
recourse to
documents que
the
vous voyez
work
ce
of the
soir
commission. So that's why the document you're seeing
dirigés
this
par
evening
François qui les
is
rédigeait,
drafted
c'est
in
que
this
au
way.
niveau
And that is
provincial,
because at the
le
provincial
gouvernement
level,
provincial
the
avait la
provincial
position
government, along with the commission,
souhaite que les
wants
municipalités
the
tentent de
municipalities
résoudre leur propre
to
situation
resolve their
par
own
vertu de leur
issues
propre code de déontologie
by
et leur
their
propre
own code of
procédure.
ethics and
Et
their
puis
own
la commission,
procedures,
elle
and the
offre
commission
une
itself
alternative supplémentaire.
provides an
Donc,
additional
le
alternative.
processus et tout ça que vous voyez dans votre code de
So
déontologie,
all the processes that
c'est
you see in your ethics code of ethics,
ça que la
rather,
province
this is how
avait
the
vu
province
de la façon que
had
ça se passerait. Donc,
seen
on en
the
parlera
way
un
things
petit
were
peu
going
plus
to go.
tard, mais je
So
voulais
I'll
juste
deal with
poser
that
ça
in
au
a
clair
moment or so, but I wanted to set that
Donc,
out at the beginning.
vous avez dans le
So
document la première
in this
section.
document, in
On
the
peut
first
passer à la
part,
page suivante, s'il vous plaît.
we can move on to the next
Énoncé de
slide.
valeurs et de
You have
principes.
the
Donc,
statement
c'est
of
les valeurs
values
et
and
les principes
principles.
que vous avez
These are the values and principles which you already hold dear.
on
We,
fait un rappel
it's
dans
a
le
reminder, if
code
you
de
will,
déontologie. Et
in
puis,
this code of ethics.
ensuite,
And then
le code oriente le comportement
The code deals with the behavior of members. This is the objective of the document. Then, the responsibilities of the municipal council, the requirement to review the code and its adaptation on a timely basis. In the document, there is a calendar that's saying the code needs to be reviewed after municipal elections to ensure that the document does not get too outdated. And there has to be a required review. And then the responsibilities of members. So you can see the various categories that we have deemed necessary to conduct, observe, engagement, behavior in meetings, using confidential information, gifts, advantages, using the resources of the city, obligations to citizens, interpersonal behavior, community representation, and there's a paragraph on what we do after a mandate. So there's a period of 12 months after we are no longer a member of council where one is still required to comply with and respect the code of conduct.
Next slide, please. Respect for the decision-making process. Now, you need to be aware of your role as individual councillors. Decisions are the board's decisions. So we ask that decisions be made in a collegial manner. There's a paragraph in there that talks about the importance of abstaining from involving the board in personal opinions. So when you send out messages and it's your personal opinion that you're conveying, you shouldn't be doing as if you're talking on behalf of the council. So we wanted to put some wording around those items. And then accurate communication of decisions. So once a decision is made by the council, whether you voted for or against, you have the duty to implement that decision, even if you voted against it. So there's nothing new here, but we put it in this code of ethics. Next, conduct towards the administration. So the important part here is, we talk about, so sometimes we can get ourselves in trouble if we don't respect the line or the lines between administration and the council. And I don't think this is something new for you, but we've described it in the document so that it's clear. So the municipal administration serves the council as a whole, and its members do not individually exercise any power over it. Members should refrain from interfering in the affairs of the administration. Now, these are concepts that you're already aware of. Next slide, please. Use of communication media. This is important. There are more and more means of communication. So it's good to remind people about what we have to do with those items. So communications devices provided by the city do not belong to us. They belong to the city. So you have to be careful in the way that you use them. So we included some paragraphs in talking about the prohibition of using devices in a way that's deemed offensive, inappropriate, or contrary to the code. Next slide, and in the same vein, again, here we're talking about social media. And that's the use of social media is growing. So members have to be discreet about what they post on social media. And you have to remember that once you put something online in social media, it's very difficult to remove it afterwards. So it's there for good. The second point is particularly important. Members are prohibited from misleading or concealing their identity or status as city representatives when using social media. So do you have a personal account? Now, if it's your personal account and you're talking in your on behalf of yourselves, and you're not speaking on behalf of the Ville and the city and so forth. And then, of course, anything that you post on social media, it cannot be harassment or defamation or in any way whatsoever. Next slide, intergovernmental relations. Members recognize the importance of collaborating with other levels of government and organizations in New Brunswick. Next slide, obligation to avoid conflicts of interest. So you cannot have direct or indirect interests in a contract with the city during your term. Now, I believe that you already have a procedure that's well developed. This is not new. So members must formally undertake to respect the interests of the city and to avoid any conflict of interest that, and this has been like that for a long time. So compliance with the Code of Ethics. So this is part of the code that we hope we never have to deal with, but if we do need it, we have to have procedures that are well established and well developed in case of a lack of compliance with the Code of Ethics. So what you have in your document before you is a few pages, but it's quite comprehensive for your. If you ever have to deal with a complaint, and I'm not going to go through it because it's boring talking about processes, but I urge you to read those pages. And what I could say just as an overview is that the mayor has a specific role to play. And if there's a complaint against the mayor, well, then it's the deputy mayor that acts in place of the mayor. And if there is a complaint that involves both the mayor and the deputy mayor, there's another procedure that's described. So I'll let you go and read that on your own time. And another important part is that councillors are obligated to look at any possible violation of the code, and they have to cooperate to achieve the objectives of the code. And they are also required to deal with any violations of the code. So one of the, you can proceed by informal resolution. So words are important in resolutions. So if you say you can or you may, that doesn't mean that there's an obligation. So, but if there's a councillor who thinks that another councillor has contravened the Code of Ethics, that individual can attempt an informal resolution, and the process is described in the document. And if that informal resolution is not satisfactory, or if the results are not the intended results, then the individual can also file an official complaint. So the informal process is not required before tabling an official complaint. It's optional. And then if there is an official complaint, and if the criteria of the complaint are satisfied, all investigations must be conducted by an independent external investigator. So you'll never find yourself in a situation where an employee or another councillor is investigating a complaint regarding one of the complaints. That doesn't exist. So the importance of the independence of those investigations, if there is a complaint, and I hope there will never be one, but now there's a point that's not in the presentation, but I want to mention it. And it's when we talk about services that are available before there's a problem. So in your code of ethics, the code provides for a service of advice. So if you ever find yourself in a situation and you don't really know what to do, and you think that maybe the actions that you're thinking of taking may cause problems under the code of ethics, and you're wondering what to do with that, well, in the code of ethics, there is a service provided for where you can call on an external consultant and you go through the clerk's office to access those services. And I think that's probably the most important paragraph of this document. If you feel that you may run into a problem with an action that you're thinking of taking and you're not sure, I encourage you to use that service. And so if you ask the clerk and the clerk approves the request, that the clerk will find you someone, a consultant, and it'll be at the cost of the city will pay for the costs. But I really encourage you to use that service. And the point is to avoid causing problems for yourself. So it's not in my presentation, but I wanted to mention it because I think it's probably the most important component of the document that you have in front of you. All right, so that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. Are there any questions at this point? And if so, let me know. Councillor Godbout. I have a few questions with the document, and I think this is probably the right time to ask that question. Okay, so first of all, thank you to both of you. I have questions on both bylaws, but I'll start by the Code of Ethics. So first of all, thank you for the excellent work that you did. I think it's clear that there's been a lot of thought put into this document, and the quality is excellent. So thank you very much. I have a few questions about some of the points, just to better understand issues of balance, the thinking that went behind some of these points. So I'll start with the Code of Ethics. I have a question on that. So the first one has to do with the principles. In the Code of Ethics, we talk about values and principles. So there's integrity, inclusion, and innovation. Now, and I don't know if you thought about this, but did you think of mentioning the idea of the Francophonie as a value? It's not in this document, but was there some thought given to that? The idea, the notion of language of work, was that a consideration? Or could it be? That's my first question. Well, I think the three subjects that you see here, I took those from your documents. So I didn't invent anything. That might be a question more for Stéphane. If you want to add things, go ahead. I took your official documents to develop this section, but there's nothing stopping you from adding what you want to add. Stéphane. Thank you, Your Worship. Well, in terms of values, the values here are the values that also appear in the strategic plan of the city. These are the three values that were determined by the councillors. So, and Francophonie is not a value. It's not in the strategic plan, so we didn't put it in here. So, second question, could we add one? Could we add it? Well, it's not impossible. That's always an option. But don't forget that the code of ethics has to do with how you deal amongst yourselves and with the public. But we could add, a part. Well, I like this idea, and I think that this could be added to improve the text. But I would like us to discuss that at one point and develop that further. All right, I'm going to go. The second question has to do with the use of social media, and I think you mentioned this in your comments. But it's a question of balance between the personal life of a counselor and the public life of a counselor. The distinction between, when you're talking on social media, in the document, there's no distinction between if you're posting something on a public page rather than on a private page, like through a personal account. Personally, I have two individual accounts, one that's personal and one that is more related to my duties as a counselor. So in that balance, what thinking went into this section? I know you talk about social media, but that distinction between a private and a professional page is how do you see that? Because there's no distinction made where in this document we talk about social media in a very general way. You're kind of combining both types. So I'm just wondering if there was any discussion about that. Well, could you give me an example? You mentioned your two accounts, so is it like Facebook? Yeah, okay, so like Facebook, in a personal account where you put your children's birthday or the birthday of your friends and relatives. And sometimes you include announcements made by the city and you invite people to communicate with them if they have issues. And the way that this document is worded, it talked about how you present yourself on social media, but there's a distinction that could be made between a personal page and a professional page. And I think that you said in your comments that it's important to be judicious in how we use social media. But I'm just trying to find that balance here between, people have the freedom to express themselves in their private life, but we don't want to put them in danger of being the topic of a subject of a complaint. I think when you make a comment on your private page, you're not talking on behalf of the council. I think that's the concepts that's kind of referred to in this section on social media. So it's difficult to trace, like to give a a black and white definition of the container of comments. But if you're when you want to convey a personal message, it's important to avoid talking on behalf of the city, of the council. That's not your place. It's not your role. And it doesn't matter what account you're using. Now, I remember when I was working with the Official Languages Commission, we had checked some social media accounts, and this was a discussion that we had at the time. It's very difficult with social media because there's not necessarily a clear line, but it's the messages that you're trying to convey on social media that you have to be careful. You have to be careful how you present them. So are you speaking on behalf of yourself? That's different than talking on behalf of the city or the council. So it's difficult to disentangle that issue more because it's quite fluid. Social media is quite fluid. So I don't know if that helps. That's helpful as a, but that was kind of the reflection. So you're a person, you're an individual, and when you speak in your own name, well, speak in your own name, and you can communicate your own personal messages, but you have to be careful when you talk on behalf of the council or when you're talking about decisions made by the council. That's a different type of message. Okay, well, I have one final comment on the document, and it's, and I think it's good that I think it's good that we're talking about this document right now, but I'm thinking about, investigations, for example, when things are going less well. So I'm looking at the tools that are available. If a member contravenes the code. So my question has to deal with 11H, and number 7 and 9 are what interests me the most. So to restrictions on travel and representations on behalf of the city council, there's a whole list of, and those two that I mentioned, 9 and 11, are the most severe sanctions. But we don't talk about distinguishing between levels of severity. So how do we determine? So this list is not in order of severity. Well, we did that on purpose, and it gives to give you the freedom as the council. So the sanction should be commensurate with the violation. So you can decide to impose one sanction or all of them, but never forget that a member can always you can never remove a member from their position. You can impose sanctions if you will, but you can never remove that person from their position. So the sanctions here are, their purpose is to give you all the possible options, and it's up to the council. The investigator at the end of the investigation will present his report with the conclusions. Is the complaint valid or not? And he or she will make recommendations. But it's up to the council to implement sanctions, and it's the council's decision. And we did this on purpose to give the council, we presented a number of sanctions, and so the council will have to deliberate and choose the sanction or sanctions that are appropriate for the conduct and the level of severity of the conduct of the breach. And is it the Governance Act, the local Governance Acts that determines how to remove a member? Yes. Well, it doesn't exist in New Brunswick. That well, my reaction reading this is that we're removing that person indirectly, but I understand why we need all those options there. Well, and it's kind of we copied what existed beforehand, and we added a few points as well. Okay, well, that brings me to another question that I might have there. All right. Councillor Lantin. Thank you, Your Worship. A very quick question to Mr. Simard on the procedural bylaw. Or with regard to the election of the deputy mayor, we're talking about vote by. So if I understand, there is no secret vote. It's not vote by raising your hand. That's what I'm proposing, yes. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you. I had a question about that same issue. So what are done by other municipal councils? How does that work? How are deputy mayors elected? That's a good question. Well, I don't have the answer, but we could find it by, reading the regulations or the bylaws of other cities. We'll have an answer soon. Sure, we can do some research and come back with an answer for you. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just want a bit more clarification with regard to copyright. If I understood correctly, Mr. Simard, if we're making a presentation or if we want to use a video or a song, we have to respect copyright. But let's say a staff member or an association comes to make a presentation, and within that, they have a video that they want to play, and they have music that accompanies it. So is it up to us now to check to make sure that they've complied with copyright? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you want me to answer? Yes, please. Well, page 66 of the package, you have the regulation. And so it says that when the presentation is sent to the clerk's office, they have to provide a written document stating that they've attained copyright to use, or the right to use from the rights holder. So that they have the right to use, or written confirmation that the music is in the public domain, or that they've obtained the right from organizations that coordinate copyright. So they have to provide that. So to my knowledge, I don't think we've ever had that experience, but well, we're just being proactive here. We're making sure that we do that we check. Now the city is going to be checking that, even though it's not the one that produces the document. Councillor Godbout. I want to know what thinking went into the section on suspension for emergency situation. Now, I'm less familiar with the Bourinet rules, but sometimes we get to, do we have to, when it's an emergency situation, do we need a special resolution rather than an ordinary resolution? Could you share your thoughts on that? There is no special regulation, so there's a 2/3 regulation or rule. But let's say we have a plane that crashes into the city. That could happen. It might be the goal of having this is to allow the council to respond quickly. So instead of I could have said in case of situation, 2/3 of the council can do this and that, but the goal here is to give us a bit of maneuverability. And we're talking about exceptional situations here that occur very infrequently. But so that's why I didn't talk about a specific type of resolution, even if we're talking about an emergency situation. But I think if I don't, anyways, what's in the text is what I'm proposing. All right, my second last question on this is on notice of motion. I understand what you're proposing. I understand the reason for it. But I'm wondering if the process is maybe not too intimidating. You know, it's intimidating to prepare a bylaw document. So before we present a notice of motion, no, I don't know if, you know, I think, you know, if there's something that you want to, how can we make it less intimidating and more concrete rather than saying, you know, then what would be the tools and resources that could help a counselor in a situation like this? Well, it's not, first of all, it's not up to members or council members to write bylaws. It's up to the administration. But yes, you have access to tools. You have access to the CEO as well. You have access to so there is a process for the writing of documents. But what I was trying to get at is that when we have a notice of motion, we already have a good idea of what we want to propose and what we want to submit to council. And you know, all of the policies and new bylaws that are being modified, they already have to go through the notice of motion process. So this gives you an opportunity to read it and to give your feedback. This simply gives you a bit more time. So I think it's a good thing. But you know, I'll repeat this. You have access to the entire administration. You know, it's you know, you never come up with a notice of motion without knowing what you're going to be presenting. So basically, the first person to go-to person is the CEO, whether it's for complaints or comments or notices of motion. So those tools exist already. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Thibodeau.
Thank you, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I thought that we were mainly discussing the Code of Ethics. I have nothing to add to the Code of Ethics. I think that Madame d'Entremont and Mr. Simard need our thanks. You've done great work, both of you. I have some comments and questions about the procedural bylaw. Firstly, the matter of the election of the deputy mayor. The vote by hand, I see a problem there because I saw that this created animosities in other municipalities. They were needless animosities. But for the purpose of transparency, I have no problem of this happening in a public meeting, but it be done by secret ballot. And if we don't have confidence in our clerk to count the ballots, well, there are other means that we can use. Another clerk? No. No, but when there are elections, the candidates, you know, have a right for a scrutineer. So that might be another solution. Anyway, that's for that point. With regard to the participation of the chair of the meeting and debates, I agree with you. This is already covered in the meeting, the Bourino rules of and Morin code of conduct for meetings. I think it's not necessary or superfluous for it to be there. Well, in fact, I could have used Bourino and taken that as the bylaw, but for a matter of simplicity and reference, rather than referring to a book, well, then we could just use our procedural bylaw and refer to it. And the question of notice of motion. The way you explained it leads me to this question. Are we not adding an extra step and lengthening and slowing down the process? Well, that's not the purpose. Are we adding a step? Yes, the answer is yes. But let me say that this step happens in other provinces. So it's not something that just appeared out of nowhere. And it has the advantages that I mentioned to you earlier, and the inconvenience of adding, a delay of potentially 2 weeks, or waiting between two meetings. But it gives us an opportunity, and I think it's interesting to become aware of the document, not only to have 2 weeks to think about a document. Technically, we could give you up to a month. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? And the two colleagues who are away, Councillor Genet and Mr. Godet, do you have any questions? No questions from me? They've already been asked. Thank you. Councillor Godet? I think all my questions have been answered. Great. Thank you. So thank you for these two presentations, and we're eager to see the follow-up. This brings us now to item 8. Oh, pardon me, sorry. Presentation of the growth plan for public transit. Jérémy Aubé. I'm sorry, Jérémy. I'll even turn your mic on. Thank you. I'll do this quickly. So, good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I have a very short presentation to give you some context relating to a request or resolution to purchase 2 more buses for our transit services. I want to say at the outset, here's the map that I did show you previously in 2023. We're talking about the growth in new routes in the city. I want to say that this map is going to be studied through the public consultation process happening over the next weeks and months, looking at the value of these routes. So this is a visual, quick way of looking at what we do with our transit, with Kodiak Transpo. And then Route A, which is in Burgundy, goes through Champlain, Dieppe North Boulevard, Amiro, and Melançon in blue. Route B, proposed, goes through Charleston, Egbert, and Lorette. And there's some redundancy for Amiro. And C, which is in a paler red, goes through Aviation Road, Dieppe, and Dover. So these are the three basic routes that we have set out for public consultation, and we'll be looking for comments to see if anything needs to be changed. I also want to add that over time, we're going to be reviewing or changing, if necessary, the existing routes. We wanted to add new routes that are going to come along, and we want to see if these existing routes can be used, or we are going to be continuing to use all of these routes in the future. The second slide is basically what I want to talk about this evening. It's a link I want to make between the buses that we have and in the very near future, the operational capacity, because we're going to be increasing the vehicle fleet and increasing the service and improving the service with the addition to the fleet. In 2023, which is already behind us, we have a total fleet of 4 buses with 3 that are active. The new bus is included there that we got in the fall, which is going to be put into service very soon. With regard to improving service in 2023, in the fall, we had some changes early September. For September, October, and November, we don't have December figures yet, but it's worthwhile saying that we had an increase of 40% in people using the service, which is excellent, I think. This is great news, and we're going in the right direction. Now, let's look to 2024. With regard to new buses, there's not much change. We've optimized the service that we already have. With regard to Kodiak Transpo, this is the active fleet that we have. The only small change we want to do for 2024 in the winter is with regard to Saturday morning service on line 95 to align with the what's going to be happening to transportation on demand. In 2024, small changes only. In 2025, there will be bigger changes. In 2025, there will be a total fleet of 8 buses, 6 of them active, and this total 8 bus fleet is based on the existing fleet today of 4 buses. We add 3 replacement buses that we looked at in the fall. We came to the council for replacement buses. These 2 new buses that we're going to be requesting tonight that we'll order and get them in 2025, and then the retirement of some buses in 2025 as well. Bus 700, which means that there will be a total of 8 buses. This means we will go from 4 to 8 buses, and we would maintain our ratio of reserve at 25%, which means we have an active fleet of 6 buses in 2025. In effect, with regard to the active fleet in 2025, this will allow us to improve 2 new routes. So 2 routes based on the 3 routes that I showed earlier. And I would say, we'll be confirming this through a public consultation process in the coming months. And there are some key routes in the city. So with this active fleet of 6 buses, we will have a service. And with the memo that's going to be coming later on in the agenda, we're talking about operational costs. We're increasing the service. Operating costs will also increase. This means we're looking at $800,000 to $1.2 million per year net after income. And this translates to an increase of 200 to 300 hours of service per week, according to the recommendations that we're going to be doing at that point. So this represents an increase of $800,000 to $1.2 million with an increase in the number of hours being used, and which allows us to improve and increase our service as well. That's all for me. Any questions? Thank you. Questions by councillors? Councillor Godbout. Thank you. I just want to clarify that with the planning you've undertaken, you expect to cover issues like use of public transit to get from the city of Dieppe to the University of Moncton at appropriate times, or to go to the hospital. We want to make sure that we're coordinating these things to improve our services. That's right, 100%. The challenge is the same, whether it be the city of Dieppe or interlining. So, for example, to get to Hospital Dumont Hospital or the University of Moncton, we cross the city. So we need to find what the solution is. But we need vehicles that either come from the Moncton fleet or the Dieppe fleet. But this is on our radar because we know that the need is there, and we want to do that. And investments like this are going to improve our chances of providing that service. That's right, for operational purposes. Thank you. Anyone else? None? Thank you for your presentation. I think generally speaking, the council is very pleased to see the direction that we're heading in, and we're very excited to see our citizens be able to take advantage of it. Thank you. Item 8, questions by members of the public. The vast public here tonight. There are no questions. No questions received by email either. Move on. Let's move on then to the adoption of the minutes of our last meeting
du mois de décembre.
held in December.
Pour la résolution, Monsieur
To make the motion,
Lanting.
Councillor Lanting. I so move.
Point 9 dans votre...
Item 9.
OK, ouais. Ah, je propose juste l'adoption, c'est ça, je propose l'adoption du procès-verbal de la réunion du...
I move the adoption of the regular council meeting minutes held last December 11th.
Merci.
I so move, Your Worship. Thank you.
Proposition par le
Moved
conseiller
by
Lanting,
Councillor
appuyé par
Lanting,
la
seconded
conseillère
by
Turgeon-Roy.
Councillor
Sur la
Turgeon-Roy. On the question,
Aucune question. Alors, ceux qui
there
sont en
being
faveur de
none,
la
all those in
résolution,
favor of the resolution will say aye.
contraire par un non.
Contrary, nay.
Alors, la résolution est adoptée telle
The
que
resolution is
présentée.
passed as
Et par la suite, nous
put
avons eu
forward.
une réunion
Then we
du
had
15
another meeting
décembre,
on December 14,
proposée pour la résolution,
moved
proposée par le conseiller
by
Thibodeau,
Councillor
appuyée par,
Thibodeau,
la
seconded
conseillère
by
Turgeon-Roy.
Councillor Turgeon-Roy.
Question.
Question.
Aucune question. Alors,
There
ceux qui sont
being
en
none,
faveur
all
de
those
la
in
résolution,
favor
s'il
of the
fait par un
resolution
oui.
will say aye.
De l'avis contraire par un non.
Against, nay.
La résolution est adoptée telle que
Carried
présentée.
as presented.
À l'item 10,
Item 10.
pour le item 10.1, mobilité
10.1,
urbaine.
Urban mobility.
Oh, Monsieur Melançon.
Sorry, Mr. Melançon. Happy New Year, everyone. And Mr. Aubé properly explained our objective, and that is to purchase 2 new buses to increase the level of service and the bus fleet. To read this resolution, Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorized City staff to proceed with the order/purchase of 2 transit buses to support the municipality's growth in public transit. I so move, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Lanting. On the question, there being none, all those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. Carried as presented. This brings us to item 10.2. Mr. Melançon. The City of Dieppe has 2 seats on the Greater Moncton International Airport Authority. And so it's a renewal for 2 people, Luc Elsinger and Jean Corriveau, with their term ending in May 2027. With your approval, we're renewing their mandates. Thank you. To read this resolution, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council appoint Luc Elslinger and Jean Corriveau on the Greater Moncton International Airport Authority Board of Directors for another term ending in May 2027. I so move. Thank you. Moved and seconded. On the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. The resolution is carried. Item 11, bylaw 11.1. The amendments were presented by Mr. Simon for a first and second reading. The comments will be looked at to begin the process of adoption for A4.
Pour la lecture de la résolution, les deux.
All right, to read the first and second reading, one after the other, Councillor Lanting, please. By title only. Thank you, Your Worship. So bylaw A-4 2024, procedural bylaw of the Dieppe Municipal Council. First reading by title only. Moved by Councillor Lanting, seconded by Councillor Brideau. On the question. Oh, yes, I have a question. Councillor Lanting. I would like, and I don't know if this is time to do this, but with regard to the comments that were made, I agree with Councillor Thibodeau on the idea of changing
le maire ou mairesse
the
adjoint,
vote for the
le
method of
corps
electing the deputy mayor, and I think it should be made public.
J'aimerais proposer que le vote se fasse de façon secrète.
But I would like the vote to be done by secret vote. All right, we'll revise the document then.
Alors, on peut quand même accepter à ce point-ci la
Okay.
résolution comme telle.
But we can still accept the resolution as is. Councillor Thibodeau. Do we need to second the amendment? Well, we have until the third reading to make amendments. So we've noted your suggestions down, and we'll come back to you with a revised version, and you'll still have another opportunity to ask questions as well.
Alors, ça nous permet de continuer le
All right, so
processus
let's
normal.
move on with the process.
Je pense que ça a été proposé par le conseiller
So I think that was moved by Councillor Lanteng, seconded by Councillor
Rideau, excusez-moi.
Rideau, sorry.
Ceux qui sont en faveur de la résolution,
Those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Opposed,
La résolution est adoptée en
the
première,
resolution carries in first reading by title only. And now we will go to second reading. Councillor Brideau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you,
Donc,
Your Worship.
on-
Oh, sorry, Councillor Lanteng.
Donc, arrêté A-4.
So bylaw
paramètres
A-4, 2024, procedural bylaw of the Dieppe Municipal Council. I so move for second reading by title only.
appuyé par le conseiller
Thank you. You're
Rideau. Alors,
seconded by Councillor Brideau. On the question,
touché la question, alors ça
and
sera,
we already
vis-à-vis le troisième
we already had a question. So
Ceci étant dit, ceux qui sont en faveur de la
So,
résolution
all those in
devraient
favor
dire
signify by saying
oui,
aye.
oui, de l'avis contraire,
Opposed,
non. Alors, le A, 10, non, excusez-moi, le A 4, 2024.
so
est
bylaw
accepté en deuxième lecture.
A-4 passes second
Qui
reading.
nous amène,
All right, that brings us
l'arrêté
to
A7,
bylaw
2024,
A-17,
sur le
Code of Ethics
régissant les membres du
governing
conseil
the Dieppe
municipal.
Municipal Council.
Monsieur
Councillor,
Ça, c'est la présentation de Madame
Oh.
d'Entremont.
so this was a presentation done by Ms. Entremont,
Alors, c'est pour votre considération.
and so it's for your consideration.
La commission municipale qui
And
suit une autre étape, si
the
nécessaire.
the municipal commission will also be offer another stage if necessary, if the conditions warranted.
pour la lecture de la résolution.
All right, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Thibodeau.
Monsieur le maire,
Thank you, Your Worship.
arrêté A-17
Bylaws A-17, 2024, Code of Ethics governing the Dieppe Municipal Council members. I so move in first reading by title only.
Par le conseiller
Moved by
Thibodeau,
Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor
sur la question.
Turgeon-Roy. On the
Sur la
question,
question, Madame Godbout.
Councillor, no, I'm in favor of the code, but I would just add the point about the values of the Francophonie subject that we talked about. I think that we should add that. It should be added as one of our values.
Ce qui ne mettrait pas en danger
Okay, well, that does
d'un anglophone de
Non, pas du
faire
tout,
des
mais
présentations.
that
C'est bon.
does not
Merci. Alors, avec,
does not does not do harm to anglophones.
ramené
Une révision dans la
avec une
version.
révision.
Okay, well, we'll make
On accepte
we'll edit the
en
bylaw.
première lecture, ceux qui sont en faveur signifient
So
par
in
oui.
first reading, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Arrêté 17,
Opposed.
sur le
So
code
bylaw
de-
A-17,
est accepté en
Code of
première
Ethics
lecture. Je vais
passes
procéder
first reading by title.
encore une fois par,
Second reading now by title only.
lecture seulement par titre. Monsieur Thibodeau.
Councillor Thibodeau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Arrêté
Bylaw A-17, 2024, Code of Ethics governing the Dieppe Municipal Council members. I so move in second reading by title only.
Par le conseiller
Moved by
Thibodeau,
Councillor
sur
Thibodeau,
l'appui qui est
by title only,
conseiller Turgeon.
seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy.
Sur la question.
On the question,
Ceux qui sont en faveur de la
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
de l'avis contraire.
Opposed,
Alors, l'arrêté A17 20
bylaw A-17 passes second reading by title only. And that brings us to item 11.3 now, zoning bylaw 10/2021, bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw with regard to commercial kennels. Who would like to read the resolution in its entirety? Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw Z-10, 2021-10, bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw. The Council of the City of Dieppe, under the authority vested in it by the Community Planning Act, SNB 2017, Chapter 19, enacts as follows. The City of Dieppe zoning bylaw, being bylaw Z-10, 2021, enacted on April 12, 2021, and filed in the Westmoreland County Registry Office as number 411-73189 on April 15, 2021, is hereby amended as follows. Paragraph 731A is amended by adding the following. Paragraph 28, commercial kennel subject to 7.37, and section 7.3 is amended by adding subsection 7.37 as follows. 7.37, in the case of a commercial kennel use, the activity must be carried out solely inside the building. So I have read the bylaw in its entirety. Moved by Councillor Godbout, seconded by Councillor Brideau is very busy tonight. The only left-handed councillor who remains. All right. So this has to do with zoning bylaw Z-10. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So we've passed the stage of reading in its entirety, and which brings us to third reading by title only. Councillor Godbout, please. Bylaw Z-10, 2021-10, bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw, so moved by title only, third reading. Moved in third and final reading by title only by Councillor Godbout, seconded by Councillor Brideau. On the question, no further questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Z-10, 21-10 passes in its entirety. Notice of motions. No notice of motions. Inquiries and announcements by members of council. I think we will start with our two colleagues who are online. Councillor Godet, please begin. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to mention for those who don't know, but with regard to the expansion of Boulevard Dieppe, I'm anxious to see. Sorry, the interpreter cannot hear the sound. Inaudible. Inaudible. Well, we didn't really understand what you were saying, but I think you said that everybody's happy at your end. Is that what you had to say? Oh, we just lost him, I think. That's okay. All right, Councillor Jeannet, please. I have nothing to add. I just wanted to wish you all a happy new year, to our colleagues and to our citizens and staff, and can't wait to see you again. Councillor Brideau now, please. Now, this happened a few times that councillors have helped the staff for the work that they do well. Now, I have to bring something up. It was mentioned by a resident from Lakeburn who wanted me to pass on his congratulations to the the maintenance crew who've been cleaning the streets since last winter. And now we haven't had snow yet this year, but he wanted to congratulate the staff for the excellent work done by the City of Dieppe workers. I would also like to wish all our residents at this beginning of 2024 health and prosperity, and I would also like to remind residents, we're expecting snow in the next coming days. We don't know how it's going to turn out, if it's going to turn into rain or snow, but drivers, please be careful with where you park your car. You don't want to get towed, so park on your driveway and not in the streets as much as possible. So, Councillor Thibodeau. So before I start, I just want to point out that for the public, we're the ones who are left-handed for people watching us on the screen. Now, other than that, I don't have much to say, but I just want to wish everybody a happy new year, to all our staff and all residents and to my colleagues. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship. Speaking of snow, I wanted to remind us that we're weak because we have an ice ring. Even if there's no snow and hasn't been very cold, I just want to remind residents that we have a ice ring and it's very busy this year. So we're very lucky. I just wanted to do a little reminder. And I want to take advantage to say that, and also to wish you all a very happy new year. Thank you, and good evening. Thank you, Councillor Godbout. Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Thibodeau. It's true, we're on the left, although we're not leftists. I'm left-handed. I'm not sure how I'm going to get out of all of that this evening. An announcement for members of council. We're hiring in the next, we're starting our planning on the police commission. So we're going to deliver the messages, and some great work is being done in the coming weeks. And I'll give you an update on that at another time. I also wanted to wish Happy New Year to the employees and public. Let's continue progressing and growth and what we've done over the last year. Thank you. Councillor Lantagne. Thank you, Your Worship. At the risk of repeating myself, I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. Colleagues around the table, employees and citizens, residents. I think it's been a great start to the year with the announcement we heard last Friday, and my congratulations and thanks to all those who worked very hard in accomplishing that result. Well, we haven't accomplished it quite, but we have the funding to begin the work, and we're happy to see this. With that, thank you and have a great evening. Also, I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year, to all our residents and employees. Of course, it was very special what happened last Friday, and to be able to finally see the financing come from all three levels of government to accomplish this result, and it'll resolve a lot of small problems that we have in our community. It's a lack of space for everyone who wants to come and move to Dieppe. This is going to allow us to help our community's growth, and then we're going to have to continue to improve our transit services and all the other great things to help our citizens feel welcome and happy in this city, and to become a green city as much as we can help it do that, financially speaking. You always have to think about money. And so that's the reason we come to work every day, and we feed our families. So with that, Happy New Year to everyone, and we'll see you next time.